Well, this video was supposed to be fairly straightforward. I started filming it about 6 weeks ago. You see, I was driving my 2009 Audi S5 one day and it developed a couple of issues. The engine light was on and I could smell petrol. I parked up at the office in that space over there actually. When I got out of the car, there was a strong smell of petrol. So I got my hands and knees and had a look under it, and it wasn't just dripping, it was leaking out. So I quickly went up to the office to get my camera gear because I knew this was going to be worth filming. I knew we were heading for a breakdown. I suspected it might have been an issue with the timing chain. My mechanic warned me of that a few weeks prior, but I was just dreading it. Anyway, fast forward nearly 6 weeks and what should have been a routine job turned into a bit of a nightmare. Honestly, it stressed me out so much, this car. And unfortunately that means I've got a massive bill. Honestly, you won't believe how much money I've spent on this. But before I tell you exactly what happened with it, let me just say a quick thank you to today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Car Vertical. Now, the UK's used car market is unlike any other. Cars are seriously cheap and you can pick up a bargain, but sometimes they're cheap for a reason. That's why it's really important that you do a thorough vehicle history check. Now with Car Vertical, that couldn't be easier. All you need to do is go to carvertical.com, type in the reg or the VIN, and then wait a few minutes and get your report. And by the way, this isn't just a UK thing, it works in over 35 different countries. So if it's had a bump in Belgium or a crash in Catalonia, it'll tell you. It checks the car's entire history and it gathers data from insurance databases, police databases, MOT records, all that sort of stuff. You can see whether it's ever been crashed, clocked, has outstanding finance on it, all that sort of stuff. It's a really thorough check. You'll even spot how many times it's been listed for sale, the ownership changes, the countries it's lived in, and a whole lot more. On top of that, it's very quick and easy and it isn't expensive, and it's cheaper still if you use my promo code HIGHPEAK. That's HIGHPEAK all one word, HIGHPEAK, and you'll save yourself 20% off each and every check that you do. Right, well thank you Car Vertical for sponsoring today's video. Let's get to it. Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, we're back in my 2009 Audi S5 Coupe with the 4.2 litre V8, and we've got a bit of a problem. In fact, it could turn out to be quite a serious problem. I've done several videos with this car over the last few months. Now, I bought it off Facebook Marketplace for just £6,000. And then what I did was go over it with a fine-tooth comb, just to try and iron out any possible issues. I really wanted to try and make this S5 the nicest one out there, so I've had absolutely everything done. I had a full engine service done, a gearbox service done, I've serviced the front diff, the rear diff, the transfer box, the air conditioning system, I've taken it to Audi and had the blind spot monitoring system done, that needed a software update. I've done every possible thing to it just to try and make it as nice as possible. And how's the car repaid me for all this love and attention I've given it? It's thrown on an engine light. For the last few days now, every time I've gone to start it, it's taken longer than it should to fire up. It's just turned over for a good, maybe 10 seconds before it starts up, which is a bit worrying. I'm quite worried, to be honest, because what I suspect has gone wrong here is my timing chain. Now, anyone with a V8 Audi will know that timing chain-wise, you're on borrowed time. They always need to be replaced every sort of 80 or 100,000 miles. This beautiful S5 of mine has done 82,000 miles, so I think it's going to be that. And it's quite a costly job. So what we're going to do now is limp this down to my mechanics, plug it in and see exactly what it needs. But I suspect it'll need a new chain, and it's around a £3,500 job. Quite expensive. It's very involved. This is why sometimes, you know, you're far better off with a cam belt. You can replace the rubber belt for about £400, job done. Whereas with a chain, it's a much bigger job. Also last week I had this carbon cleaned, had it walnut blasted. I also had the injector seals replaced. I've really done everything just to try and make sure that it continues to purr. I've upset it, obviously. Right, anyway, I'm down at my mechanics, so I'll have an update for you very soon, hopefully with good news. Hopefully not chain related, but we shall see. It smells a bit of fuel, this as well. That's not good. Got a strong whiff of petrol. Don't you just love cars? Well, I got that dreaded call from my mechanic. It is indeed the timing chain. Now, I could have continued using it, but it would have got worse and worse. And then eventually probably would have just given up the ghost completely. So I thought the best thing to do would be just to bite the bullet and get on with it. It's a car I love, so I may as well just get on with it, hadn't I? Now, my mechanic said it's a very labour-intensive job. It's going to take something like 32 man-hours. What they've got to do is drop the engine, drop the gearbox, lift the car up out of its way. Then while the engine's on the bench, they've got access to the back of the engine, where the timing chains are, to replace all 4 or 5 chains. So it's a major job. Then once all that's done, they can put it back in the car and get it running again. So I'm down at my mechanics now just to check on the progress. They spent all of yesterday stripping the engine out of the car. So I've just got a glimpse of it. That you can't even tell that that's a car. That's really sad to see because I love this thing. let's go and have a chat with the mechanics then and see how it's going to work. Right, talk me through the job then. So the engine's out, engine and gearbox are out.
Engine gearbox is out. The plan now is to strip gearbox off the back of the engine to gain access to the timing cover with it, really.
Because the chains are at the back of the engine.
Chains are at the back, yeah. Yeah.
Why would they have put the chains at the back? Is it just a design flaw?
I think it's just a design thing with them more than anything else.
Okay.
I mean, it would have been easier if we were obviously at the front.
You could have just taken the front bumper off, couldn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
And the grille and whatnot.
It's just how they've designed them, I think, really.
Okay. Apart from it being very sort of labour intensive, was it quite straightforward to get it out?
More or less, yeah. Everything's come apart quite nice. I've not struggled with anything. So
okay.
It's been straightforward.
And there are 5 chains or something at the back, aren't there?
I think 4 or 5 chains on the back.
Okay.
I don't know, obviously, until I've got it stripped apart.
So same with the cam button, you lock everything in place and then take the chains off?
Yes, lock the cams, lock the crank, and it's just a case of remove the tension off the chains and just take each chain off one by one and then time each one by one.
Right. And replace the tensioners as well?
Tensioners as well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
While we're at this stage then, we might as well, if you spot anything else that's leaking or loose or old or whatever, we may as well replace it,
yeah, more of a preventative maintenance thing more than anything else, especially once it's all back in, you might not be able to get to stuff.
Exactly.
Especially at the rear of the engine as well, so like almost like your timing cover gaskets and stuff like that would need to be replaced anyway.
Okay, so we may as well do that, haven't we? I don't think there's any oil leaks on it, but I mean, you'll know, won't you?
It's bone dry, so I don't think there's any at the moment, so...
Right, that's all right then. Okay, and we had to get the aircon guy out, didn't we, Mike?
Yes, just to remove the gas out of it so I could take the aircon condenser off.
Okay.
More than anything else, because that was sort of just holding me up at one point. So.
Yeah, right. So everything's gone to plan though so far? There's nothing that you've seen or found that's bad?
No, it's a clean, it's a clean engine, clean vehicle.
Right, good. So next step then basically is gearbox off. And then you can reveal the timing chains basically.
Pretty much.
Okay. Right, well, will that be today then, do you think?
I should hope so.
Yeah, okay.
I should hope so.
Right, I'll come back later then and see how you're getting on with it.
Yeah.
All right, well, good luck then. Right, well, I'm going to leave them to it. They've got plenty of work to do. It's really broken my heart seeing it like that. I'm going to go back to the office now, and then in a couple of hours' time, once they've got access to the timing chains, they're going to give me a call, and I'll come back down, I'll bring you guys along, and I'll show you exactly what's happening. Although I feel a bit sick about the whole thing, I know that once it's been done, then I've probably got the nicest S5 out there, haven't I? Every single job will have been done then. And yeah, while it's at this stage, if we replace anything that's leaking or loose or old, then, I don't know, gives me a bit of confidence that we've got a good one. So, anyway, right, I'll see you soon. Hang on. So we've just come back down to my mechanics now, and I thought I'd give you a quick update with the S5. So they've managed to take the gearbox off, and then the gearbox then has revealed the location of the timing chains. So the timing chains are here, basically. It still needs stripping down, but once that's off, then that will reveal where the timing chains are. And of course, they're going to replace the timing chain gaskets and stuff, the cover gaskets, so that'll all be sorted. Just removing the gearbox alone looked like a massive task. I was watching in the wings, not really offering to help, but it took 4 of them to lift it off. I could have saved some money and used non-genuine parts, but I thought I'm kind of in for a penny, in for a pound here, and I didn't want to cut corners. So I went straight to Audi and got all genuine parts. So the full chain kit, all the nuts, all the bolts, everything's come from Audi. So we shouldn't have any complications, I hope. I think I'll leave it with them now for a few more hours, and then hopefully once they've got access to the timing chains, I'll nip back down and get some more footage. That's the plan. Right, we're down to my mechanics now. Today's a fresh day, and they managed to take the covers off so we can see the timing chain. And instantly, I've got a migraine. How complicated is that? Now, whenever you think of a timing chain, I always think of like, you know, something simple like a bicycle chain. But in actual fact, we've got 4 or 5 chains here. It's just such a complicated system. Everything needs to be timed up here perfectly, then locked in position, take the old timing chains off, and then put the new ones back on. Quite a big job this, isn't it? Now you've stripped this then, so just talk me through what you're going to do next.
Well, plan is now is time it up so everything's all locked in place and nothing can move, and it's literally just a matter of taking the tension off the chain. So it's just literally push these back. These are oil filled tensioners.
Okay.
Push these back, drop the pins in, and it'll take the slack off basically.
Right.
So you can start on doing everything, take everything off one by one.
And is there any sort of fault with this that you've seen yet, or is it too early to see? Or?
It's too early to say, really. I mean, if we look at the tensioners, they do look quite far out, so it is probably due for being done more than anything else.
That's good,
I think they do sort of every 90,000, I think, on
yeah,
the...
he's done 82,000 miles
Yeah,
this,
so it's-
and it's 15 years old, so they're not
Better
gonna
off
last
doing it
forever.
now than-
Yeah, and it's a high performance engine, isn't it? So
Yeah.
they're under a lot of pressure, really.
Definitely.
Okay, now it's a big job, this, but is this the sort of job that a DIYer could do? Or is it too much?
It all depends on your skill set at the end of the day. It's not something you want to do on your drive at all.
No, okay. I was just thinking about anyone watching this video, that was all, thinking, if you could, you'd have to be quite competent, wouldn't you? Quite confident.
Yeah. I mean, you can read through as many forums and stuff as you want for doing it.
Yeah.
There's a wealth of information out there, but doing it on your drive, on your back, it's not something you'd want to be doing.
No, definitely not.
No.
And then obviously there's a sequence to this, isn't there? So you've got to do that in the right order.
Yes. It's literally a case of locking the cams up with a crank.
Okay.
And then just take each chain off one by one.
Yeah.
And then basically just fit in reverse order, basically.
Okay. And also, we're going to replace the starter motor, aren't we?
Yes.
So the starter motor is buried by the engine.
Yeah, it's quite a difficult job to change once everything's all built up. So we're at
Yeah.
the point now with gearbox out and stuff like that. You
well
may as
do
well
it.
just do it as sort of preventative more than anything else. It doesn't
Okay.
need one, but if it's to ever
But
go...
again, it's 15 years old, might as well do it, haven't we?
Yeah, it would
All
look
right.
like engine out job to do the start motor if it ever went. So.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, well, we might as well do that then, haven't we? Right, I'll leave you to it then. We're back down at the mechanics, and Tim's put all the new chains on and got everything timed up. So it's all quite exciting, really. And you'll notice the gaps here between the tensioners. On the old ones, there was quite a big gap to obviously make up for the slack in the chain. So the new ones are much tighter. Had we not had this issue with it, it would have definitely needed to be done in the next sort of 10,000 miles anyway, which makes me feel better. Next thing to do then, Tim's cleaned off all the remnants of the adhesive, so that can have the new gasket on before we put the timing cover back on. Did you have any problems with it, Tim, or not?
None.
Everything went to plan?
Yeah, everything went really smoothly.
So it's just a case of following it step by step, really?
Pretty much, yeah.
Each
Take your
chain?
time with it.
Okay. So now you're gonna turn over by hand? Yeah?
Yeah.
Right, watch this then. Oh, look at that. That's quite satisfying to watch, isn't it? So obviously you do this by hand just to check that everything's...
Yeah, nothing's locking up, everything's in time.
Everything's in
and stuff
position.
like that with it, really.
Okay. It's so complicated, isn't it? These are the little tensioners here, look. So they're oil filled so that over time, as the chain sort of slackens, they push out to keep the tension on the chain. You know, with timing belt tensioners, they're not oil filled like that, are they?
No,
They're
they
just
rely on
sprung, are
spring
they?
tension
Right,
on those.
fine. Okay. What's the next step then now?
Clean what's left of, obviously, oil and sealant that's
Okay.
on the face there. Clean it, obviously, off my timing cover, fit the new crank seal to cover, and then just replace the cover, really.
Once this is done then and back in the car and running, do you have to give it like a run-in service in a few hundred miles or not?
Not necessarily,
No?
no.
Okay.
No. Oil obviously would be changed once it's all back up inside and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just a case of just running everything up to temperature and make sure everything's
Right.
sealed, no oil leaks, no fuel leaks, and
Okay.
no water leaks. Anyway.
And you were saying then this is the head gasket here, isn't it?
Yes.
So you just need to be careful not to pinch that when you're putting the cover back on.
So what I'll do with that really is I'll feed a very thin between the timing cover and the head gasket, and it'll create like a ramp at the end of the day. So as I slide the cover in, it'll keep the head gasket pinched against the basically on the channel here.
So it doesn't sort of kink or
you bend it inwards, it's going to cause it either.
Okay. That's quite satisfying, isn't it, to see it? And the new starter's on.
New starter is on, yeah.
That's good. So once the cover's back on, then it's just a case of what, offering it up,
building it all back up, then
gearbox back on.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
We are aiming for Tuesday.
Okay. Right. Good. Right. I'll leave you to it then.
That's fine.
Right. Cheers, pal. And we're back in my beautiful Audi S5 Coupe, which is now fully finished and ready to go. It's had a new timing chain, a new starter motor, a new crankshaft position sensor, a new reluctor ring, a new wiring loom, a new injector seal, a new rear main oil seal. Honestly, I've spent so much money on this car. It's had so many new parts, it's really like, well, it's like Trigger's broom. It's also taken about 6 weeks, which is approximately 5 weeks longer than it should have done. But still, we got there in the end. It's now fully sorted and running beautifully. I really love this car, so it's definitely worth spending the money on, but it's certainly tested my patience. After we last spoke then, my mechanic had turned it over by hand and he was quite satisfied that the timing was right. Then it was just a case of building it back together. So we put it all back together, which took hours and hours and hours, and then when he went to start it up, nothing. It just turned over forever, but wouldn't fire up. So he did various checks and tests, and it was coming up with loads of fault codes. At that point then, it's a bit of a process of elimination. You just got to work through the faults and hope that one of them cures it. It was getting fuel, so it wasn't that. By the way, the little fuel leak was one of the new injector seals. When the previous garage had changed the injector seals, they'd sort of, I don't know, they damaged one of them, so it was leaking from that. So that was a simple fix. He subsequently spent hours and hours and hours checking through everything to make sure he hadn't done anything wrong. And he just couldn't get to the bottom of it. It was coming up with a faulty crankshaft position sensor, so it had a new one of those. That didn't cure it. Then he suspected that he'd damaged the wiring loom when he was taking it all apart, which could have been quite an easy thing really. I mean, bear in mind this is a 2009 car. When you completely strip it all out and remove the engine, it is quite possible that one of the wires was damaged. So we replaced the wiring loom, but still nothing. At that point then, it was sort of back to the drawing board. Bear in mind, days and days and days were being wasted here with it stuck on a ramp. Nobody could figure it out. Then in the end, they realised that it could be a dodgy reluctor ring. Now, the reluctor ring, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but I imagined that it would have teeth on it, visible teeth, like a cog or something. But then I'm not mechanically minded, as you'll have no doubt seen in many other videos. But anyway, that was my understanding of it. But it's not, it's perfectly smooth. But it has sort of teeth on them that are, I don't know, they're sort of magnetised. He was showing me through this lens that shows, I don't know how you describe it. Magnetisation? I don't know. I'm showing my ignorance now, aren't I? But what had happened with the old reluctor ring, it had obviously been beside one of his tools with a magnet on or something, and it kind of lost its magnetisation. So as it was spinning round, there were big gaps, or like big gaps in the teeth where this thing had been damaged. And that obviously could have been such an easy thing to overlook. I mean, I would have never known. It looked perfectly fine, it didn't look damaged. But sure enough, when he replaced the old reluctor ring with a new one, it fired straight up. So he built it all back up and then was using it for a few days to go home just to make sure that it was all fine. Sure enough, it wasn't. He got it back up on the ramp and it was leaking oil from the rear main oil seal. Now, that's quite a labour-intensive job. I've had this many times before. It obviously just happened because it had been disturbed. So once again, everything came off and that seal was replaced. He went home in it again and the next day it was bone dry, so that was fine. So I thought I was out of the woods then really, so the next day I went to go and collect it with the intention of taking it for a good valet because it was filthy. I drove it for a couple of miles and the engine light came on. So I turned around, took it back down to my mechanics, got them to scan it. And again, it was coming up with loads of weird faults. It just didn't seem right. Anyway, they spent hours and hours working away on it and eventually sorted it. I think, to be honest, because the whole thing had just been disturbed several times and it's quite a complex car, it just wasn't happy about it. So various parts were replaced and now it is running perfectly. And I'm quite pleased about it, really. It's caused me no end of stress, this. I was genuinely worried about it. There was a point about 3 weeks in where I thought, I'll never see this car running ever again. It's just not going to happen. But sure enough, my pessimism wasn't warranted. It's all fine. All it took was weeks of sleepless nights and feeling sick, and thousands of pounds. I really don't know what I was worried for. But still, we got there in the end though, and I'm just grateful to my mechanic for not giving up with it. Everyone there did their best and rallied round and got it working, and I'm over the moon. Would you like to know what I've spent? Now, thankfully, once again, I'm grateful for my mechanic because they haven't charged me for an awful lot of parts. In their defence, it was the first time they'd done a job of this magnitude, so we were all new to it, really. At the start of this video, I seem to recall mentioning that my bill would be about £3,000. That was a little bit optimistic. In the end, my total bill was £3,287 plus VAT. That, of course, means that my grand total is just shy of £4,000, which is... it's an awful lot of money, really. It's an awful lot of money for a £6,000 car. But still, I'm fairly confident now. Well, this car's had everything. It's had absolutely everything. It must be one of the best in the UK. I've had the engine serviced, the timing chain replaced, the starter motor replaced, a whole load of parts under the engine. I've had the diff serviced, the gearbox serviced, the air conditioning system serviced. Oh, that was something else actually. After it was done at my mechanics, I had to get the air conditioning gassed up again. So I took it over to Collision Craft near my office and they gassed it for me, so that cost me another £60. Then from there, because it was filthy, I took it to Tameside Detailing for a full valet, and it now looks as good as new. In fact, I'm forgetting a couple of things. I also needed to get the tracking sorted, so I took it to Quick Fit over in Hyde, and I also took it to Jimmy. The fuel door wasn't put on properly. On the previous MOT, it advised that the fuel door was missing, so obviously someone's stuck it back on, but they hadn't stuck it on properly. So Jimmy took it off, cleaned it, and fitted it properly, and it's now perfect. It was bothering my OCD. So this car now owes me an awful lot of money, but I'm completely confident with it. It drives perfectly, everything works, the air conditioning is ice cold. We got there in the end. And I suppose with something like this, that's all that matters really, isn't it? So you know I said at the start of this video that I might be facing a large bill? Well, weren't I right? Anyway, on that note, thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. Oh, by the way, don't forget to check out the new channel. So I set up a new channel called More High Peak, and we've just hit 50,000 subscribers, so go and check it out. It features a lot of behind the scenes content and that sort of stuff. People seem to like it, so thank you. And yeah, I think that's about it. So cheers for watching, and I shall see you next time. Cheers, guys.